Hello, hello again, gents of all genders. As always, I am your friendly neighborhood coyote, and I am bringing to you today HSG's Beginner's Guide to PCGen. The purpose of this guide is to simply help you create a character for the Pathfinder tabletop RPG system using the PCGen character creation software. Note before we get going, this guide is just designed for the character creation software. It will not take you through all of the rules and processes for character creation in the Pathfinder system. So I highly recommend that you take the opportunity to read through at least the character creation rules, but really all of the rules in the core rulebook for players. The core rulebook can be obtained from paizo.com in PDF format for about $10, I believe. However, if you don't want to have to purchase it, all of the basic rules, and in fact, more than you could ever need for the Pathfinder system, are available on d20pfsrd.com. It's an invaluable resource for beginner players and experienced players, providing all kinds of information for the Pathfinder system. Links for both the core rulebook from Paizo and D20 PFSRD are in the description below. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. Starting off, you will note that I am using version 6.06.01 of PCGen. That is the most recent stable release of PCGen. The links for PCGen's website are in the description below. There are development versions that are available, though the stability of those and their functionality can vary between versions. I will show you some options later on in the video for using the development version to get to more advanced sources, more advanced character options. But for most of your character building purposes, the stable version should be more than sufficient. Once you've downloaded the version and have it up and running, it will ask you to select your sources. The sources determine what rule system you're using and what rules are in play. If you have already loaded the rules or don't know what sources you selected, you can always go to Sources, select Sources, and it'll bring up your basic options here. Again, there is an Advanced tab where you can custom select the sources that you want to load. There are a variety of things that are available, and I'll go into more detail about that towards the end of the video. But for most of your character building needs, you can go ahead and load the Pathfinder RPG course supplements. I do not recommend the Pathfinder RPG for players. That is the most basic options available. That will basically just be the core rulebook. And if you're wanting to do any races beyond the standard races or classes beyond the standard classes, you'll need to load the RPG course supplements. So once you have that selected, go ahead and load it. I already have it loaded, so there's not anything happening, but there will normally be a progress bar towards the bottom here. Once you have your sources loaded, just go ahead and create a new character by clicking the button in the top left corner. Alright, once you have created your new character, you will be brought to the summary page, which has all the basic information that you need on your character. Your statistics will be here in a nice summary format. You've got your character basics here that you can select options on. And one of the more important things on this page is the things to be done window. That little box down here will show you what steps you need to go through to create the character. It is invaluable. If you're ever hitting a dead end and you don't know if you need to do something else, or if you're having an issue and things aren't loading properly on your character sheet, come back to this tab and look at the things to be done. It'll tell you if there's something that needs to be removed or something that needs to be added in order to properly create your character. Once you've gotten a general look around at the summary tab, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you have the correct method selected for generating your ability scores. So go ahead and click on the method button. If you are joining us for HSG's Pathfinder campaign that's currently being run by Truth Eternal, we use the purchase mode for generating stats, and we have a Epic Fantasy or 25-point purchase mode. If you're joining for a different campaign, or if you're just viewing this video for your own uses in a campaign, check with your GM as to what character stat generation method you should be using. Once you have the correct one selected, go ahead and click OK. The stats should automatically generate to the right amounts with the right ability mods. Next, usually I like to go ahead and fill out my character basics. It just helps get that out of the way, and it is the first step in our things to be done is enter a name. So I've decided to create a Gathlane Barbarian that I'm going to name Toot Toot. And I usually like to fill out the player name. It's not strictly necessary, but it will help other players to know whose character it is when they go and look at the character sheet. You can use the tab label to change the label of the tab down here. This is generally not necessary because the tab will automatically default to either the character name or the file name. Gender you can select, handedness you can select. Neither of those options will really have much effect on the character options available. They're just for character flavor. Alignment will have some effect on what options are available, but don't get too hung up on it. If you're not playing a class that has specific alignment requirements and you're not looking for any specific feats or spells that require a given alignment, just pick whatever alignment aligns with your character concept. Since I'm playing a barbarian, the character alignment can't be lawful, so I will go ahead and do chaotic good. Next, you'll select your deity. Again, mostly your deity pertains to character backstory and motivations. It can have some effect on feats and abilities that are available, but again, don't worry about it too much so long as it works with your character concept. A great reference if you're looking for a comprehensive list of all the deities that are available is archivesofnethys.com, links in the description. It presents a great list of the deities and what benefits and detriments come with them. One thing I will note, as I recall this now, for whatever reason, the Windows version of PCGen, at least as I'm running it, does not enjoy me using a scroll wheel. When I do that, it causes all kinds of havoc with the Windows. So it works perfectly fine on Mac, and that's normally what I use. But for purposes of recording this, I am on Windows, and it does not like the scroll wheel. So use the tab or the up and down arrow keys rather than the scroll wheel if you run into issues like that. For purposes of this character, we'll just go ahead and go with the basic selection of Gorum, God of War. That'll be fine right now. Really, I should choose a different deity, but that's neither here nor there. Once you have your basic information filled out, I usually like to go ahead and select my race before I do my ability scores. That's just because race can have an impact on your ability scores, and I like to see what that impact is so that I know how to weight my ability scores a little bit more intelligently. So you can come over here and use the drop-down menu to search for race, but there are a ton of options, and not all of them are for player characters. A lot of them are actually for NPCs and monsters, because PCGen can also be used by GMs to create sheets for NPCs and monsters. So if you're not immediately finding the race that you like just by scrolling through here, what you can do instead is go to the race tab and search for the race. And I'm going to go with a Gathlane, and there it is. When you're selecting your race, just do be careful. If you're looking for an unusual race, make sure that the one that's available in PCGen actually is a character race. If you're seeing really weird stat adjustments, like a +10 to a stat or something like that, chances are it is for the monster version of that race rather than for a player version. Once you have the race, You select it, you can click select race or just double click on it. Or there you actually apparently do have to select race. It may be a difference with Mac because in Mac you can double click. But again, once you have your race selected, go ahead and have it over here. Go back to your summary tab. It'll be selected up there. And as you can see, it's already automatically adjusted my stats. Then I'll go ahead and select my ability scores. I'm going to be a barbarian, so I'm going to want to up my constitution a fair bit. Have a natural detriment to it, so that's unfortunate. Not the ideal race for a barbarian, but I'm going with a specific character concept. You'll want strength, obviously, and since this character actually can fly, I want to add some dex as well. And then it never hurts to add in a bit of intelligence, and we'll just go ahead and add in that much. This isn't an ideal build, but it works. You get the idea. I've got all my ability scores selected. I've used up my fantasy points. I can give myself more points by reducing a score, but I generally don't like to go under 10. I don't like characters with detriments to their scores, but that's just me. Once you've selected your ability scores, as you can see here, actually this is a good point. Extra intelligence will give you the ability to select additional languages. So as I increase my intelligence score to give me a more than +0 ability mod, I have select bonuses languages added to the things to be done automatically. So if I were to forget about it, that would be there and that would let me know, oh, I need to come up here to languages and add some bonus languages. Unfortunately, the way this race is loaded in, it doesn't properly have the languages selected available. You'll run into that from time to time when you select non-standard options. And the best solution I found for that is if it's not working in the stable version, go and download one of the development releases, and usually they'll have updated the options and done hot fixes on that. But for now, it doesn't matter too much. Normally there'd be a list of languages here. I'd select them, add language. I have 2 extra languages remaining. Not going to worry about it right now. But because of that, that will remain in my things to be done. It's a little bit annoying, which is usually why I like to use a development version. Once you've gotten all of your ability scores, your next 2 options are to either select a class or select traits. I usually like to go ahead and select traits. I just like to get it out of the way before I go into selecting the class. It seems to be something that would already be true of my character before I select a class. So I usually like to go through and select my traits first. There are a ton of traits. Select whichever ones work best for your character concept. Traits are usually more tied to character background than they are to selecting the best option. There are some people who will just select whatever option works best for them regardless of background, but the intent is it should make sense to your character. If your character doesn't believe in a god and has no relationship to religion, it doesn't really make sense to choose something like Child of the Temple, where you were brought up as a child in a temple. One thing to note is that some traits do have specific requirements, whether it be race requirements, region requirements, or religion requirements. PCGen does not always enforce those. So, for example, Corpse Cannibal here is a religion trait that would require me to worship Urgathoa. And even though I've not selected Urgathoa as my deity, it's still available for me. In that case, use your best knowledge. This is where having D20 PFSRD available really helps. You can go and look up the trait and make sure that there aren't any requirements that you're not meeting. So just be aware of that. And I just used the scroll wheel, and it didn't cause any problems. Well, not going to look a gift horse in the mouth on that one, but I will have to reduce my reliance on that. In any case, we'll go ahead and just select a couple of traits here. I'll go ahead and select Armor Expert, because that's a nice thing to have for someone that's going to wear at least some armor. And I don't know, what do we do? Sure, we'll do Bastard. It doesn't matter right now. Once you've selected your traits, gotten your ability scores, gotten your race, gotten everything else filled out, then you can go ahead and select your class. First thing you're going to want to do is select the class from the drop-down menu. You do also have the option of selecting it through the class tab, similar to the race tab. I generally don't need that because the list of classes is much shorter than the list of races, but as you will. So I'm going to go ahead and select Barbarian here. You'll note that classes that aren't available to me because of race or alignment or whatever are redded out and cannot be selected. If you encounter that and you're looking for that specific class, like for example, if I wanted to play an anti-paladin, first thing to check is your alignment. I would have to be a chaotic evil character to select anti-paladin. So that's why it's redded out, and if you encounter that problem, check that option. If you don't know why it's redded out, you can come over to the class tab and select the one that you're looking at, and it will tell you some of the requirements here. So it tells me either alignment is exactly chaotic evil, or I need to find a way to bypass class alignment. You don't really need to worry about that bypass aspect. That's if you're doing weird things with the rule system. Otherwise, look to the first part. The other thing to do is look at D20 PFSRD and look at class requirements and see if you're not meeting one of those. In any case, I'm going with Barbarian. I meet the requirements because I'm not lawful. There we go. Once you've selected the class, you have to add a level. Just selecting it in the drop-down won't do anything. You'll go ahead and add your first level. It'll bring up a warning letting you know, hey, did you choose all the abilities that you need to choose? Did you use up all of your points? Are your scores correct? And if you've done everything properly up until now, you'll just be able to click yes. That'll bring up your outfit. You get a free set of clothing for your character. We'll just go ahead and choose the basic Explorer. It generally doesn't matter. There's a couple of ones that have some slight benefits. For example, cold weather gives you a +5 circumstance bonus on fortitude saves versus cold weather, but otherwise the selection doesn't really matter. It's just so your character's not walking around naked and doesn't have to buy clothes. So after you've selected your clothes, you'll get your HP roll. At first level, it automatically rolls to max, which is great. For later levels, and I'll show this to you later, it will roll randomly. For the HSG campaign that Truth is running, the first 3 levels are max HP, so after your first level, you'll just go ahead and click this up and make sure that it's as high as possible for your first 3 levels. After that, it's a standard roll. So, now that I've added my class level, there's been a whole bunch of other things that have been added to our things to do. Usually you're going to want to check and make sure that the standard class options are available. So sometimes it'll have something asking, do you want class version, or right now it's doing raging selection. Generally, that's not going to be something you need to worry about too much unless you're looking to do something different with your character than is normal. So for example, here, I just want to choose the standard rage. I'm not interested in controlled rage. If there's an option that you don't know what it is, generally don't choose it and go with whatever seems standard. Again, any questions like this can usually be addressed by D20 PFSRD, but once you've got that selected, you clear it out of your to-do list, you can move ahead. Now, one thing that I like to do before I go through any of the other steps is, if I'm using an archetype, I like to come over here to the Feats and Abilities tab, which is where you have a lot of the things that are class-specific available. And I like to go to my archetypes and go ahead and select my archetype before I start doing any other modifications. That's just because it makes it easier for the system to calculate things. For example, some of your archetypes will change what your class skills are, and if you go and select the skills beforehand, it can cause issues with the calculation. Generally, it automatically calculates perfectly fine, but just out of an abundance of caution and having used this system extensively, I usually find it's better to do the order of operations like this. I'm going to go with a Titan Mauler because I want my little tiny fairy to be able to wield large-ass weapons. So I've selected my archetype and I'm adding it. And now it automatically reds out the rest of them with the exception of Totem Warrior because I can't select the other archetypes. They would be inconsistent with this one. If there are other archetypes that are available, you can go ahead and select those if you want to. You can have more than one archetype so long as the requirements don't clash. Generally, I don't recommend doing that unless you really know what you're looking for and are okay with the rules and understand how things are going to change. Otherwise, a single archetype or the standard class will serve you well. Once I've done that, I go back to the summary tab. And then I like to go ahead and get my skills out of the way. So you can go ahead and click on skill points, remain to be spent. You also have the skills tab up here, but like I said, the links and the things to be done make it very easy to kind of navigate around and go through the steps. So you've got your skills here, and you can add ranks. So I'll go ahead and do that. I've got 6 points, which is somewhat unusual for a barbarian, but sure. I did put extra points in intelligence, so that'll give me something extra. Go ahead and do fly, because I can fly. Go ahead and do intimidate. What a barbarian doesn't want to intimidate people. Not going to do climb, even though I have a fair amount of strength, because, like I said, I can fly. Let's see here. It doesn't really matter. We'll go ahead and do survival. Might as well throw some knowledge in there, knowledge nature. I like to do the class abilities just because you get the automatic bonus, so I usually look and see which ones are yes next to them, unless I have a specific character concept in mind that needs something else. Perception is always invaluable, and obviously, as you already saw, you can, if you're missing a skill and you don't know where it is, click one of the arrows there to expand it, and usually you'll find it there. Sense motive, there we go, that works. Once you've selected all that, you shouldn't have any more remaining. One issue that I have found is if you come in later levels and are trying to add points and you're adding points for a new level. So I've got, let's say I was level 2 and I had another 6 points here. If I accidentally pressed down here and removed a point, it would go back into my first level, and that can actually cause issues with how it calculates. So the way to fix that is you have to go through and remove essentially all of your points and redistribute them. It's a pain in the ass, so my recommendation is when you're adding new levels, be very careful that you don't remove points when you're starting out. I'll show you that in a little bit more detail later on in the video, but just a warning on that. All right. Next, you've got your favorite class bonus that remains to be selected. That's over in feats and abilities, class features, favorite class. Your favorite class is whichever class will give you a bonus whenever you take levels in that class. Generally, you're going to select the class that you select at first level. The only time that might change is if you're planning on multi-classing and you want to have your later class selections give you the bonus instead. For me, I'm just going to go ahead and stick with Barbarian. Once you've selected that, it'll automatically add your favorite class bonus section down here. There's a ton of options in here that usually don't matter. You can see they're all redded out. Anytime you come to an area of this where there's a bunch of red options and you don't want to have to deal with searching through them, go ahead and click the qualified button. That'll automatically remove all the ones that don't matter, and you'll just see the ones that you qualify for. I just am going to go ahead and do an extra hit point because I don't really need any additional skills, and who doesn't like more health? There we go. Next, there is my feat selection. Go ahead, come over here, again, feats and abilities. Now you're in your feats tab. This is, again, another area where the qualified option is invaluable, but you do want to sometimes take it off because sometimes you'll want to see what options are available, just to see, what things you need to go to get something. So, for example, if you want to get ability focus, no, that's not a good example. Let's see, what's a good example here? Barroom Brawler. That's a good one. If you've looked at Barroom Brawler on D20 and you're wondering why it's not here, you'll see that you actually need to have a base attack of at least 4. So you'll know, oh, I can't select that now. I need to select it later. Other ones will have other feat requirements. So for example, befuddling strike, you need to have at least unarmed strike, and that'll tell you, okay, well, I can't get that now, but if I want to get it later, let me go ahead and go down and select unarmed strike first. But usually you'll want to research those kinds of things on D20, PFSRD, just because it's easier to navigate that than going through here. So again, qualified helps narrow things down. For my barbarian, I'll just go ahead and do power attack. It's a good standard option for barbarian. You can see I meet the requirements here. I've got strength of 13 and my base attack is at least 1. Go ahead and select it, add selected, and there you go. Come back over to the summary tab. No more things to be done listed other than selecting bonus languages, but we can't do that because the system isn't working properly right now. That's mostly because I have to be an asshole and select non-standard races that the system isn't always designed to handle. Don't be like me when you're creating your first character. The basic options are generally more than enough. So, with that, you've got basically all the required stuff out of the way for your actual character. The last thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and go to your inventory. Because while your character's created, you want to have your character have some things to use, some armor, some weapons, things like that. Whenever you're doing character creation, you'll generally want to go ahead and do character build. That will make sure that you are spending money to get the options, but you also can sell them back at full price and don't have to constantly be adjusting your fund total. Before you go ahead and start adding things, you'll want to come down here and add whatever your standard amount of funds are, or whatever you rolled for your funds. I don't recall off the top of my head what the standard amount for Barbarian is, but let's just go ahead and go with 80 gold pieces. It doesn't really matter right now. Add that in, you'll see your funds update there. We'll go ahead and just get standard armor. We'll go with some leather armor for now that's light. Studded leather. Is that medium? No, that's also light. Well, we'll go with some light armor right now. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Add equipment. You're golden. And we'll want a sword. Let's just go ahead and do a standard long sword for right now. Now, there is the option to add custom items from the inventory, so this is a little bit more advanced, but on the off chance that your character has some unusual weapon starting out or gets an unusual weapon later on, you can come down here and click on the Add Custom button. That's going to bring up a bunch of different options here. You can adjust the name of the weapon, you can adjust certain properties, the cost, the weight, the damage, the size, and you can add things to it. The standard one that you're going to end up adding at some point in your campaign is the enhancement bonus. You won't generally add that at character creation because you almost will never have sufficient money unless there's some weird rules in play. But if you want to add a modifier, let's say it's somehow you have a masterwork one. Maybe you have additional starting cash from a trait. There's a nice trait that gives you 900 starting gold. So it's conceivable that you would have a masterwork longsword. You add the modifier, it automatically adjusts the price. You can click buy. I don't have sufficient funds to get it, so it just adds it into the inventory, and there it is. It's automatically there, and so if I wanted to add the funds, I could, and then I would have sufficient money to get it. For right now, we'll just go ahead and add the equipment. Once you've purchased the equipment, you actually have to equip it so that it will appear on your character sheet. So you come over to your equipment tab, and you select it, and you click equip selected. Your container will usually default to where it needs to be, but sometimes that will need to be changed. Sometimes you might want to be wielding it with both hands. So I'm not carrying a shield. Why wouldn't I want to wield it with both hands? Even though it's not a two-handed weapon, I get extra damage if I do that. So let's do that. Okay. And now I'm running into issues with the window again. That's unfortunate. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and save the character. And we will just go ahead and save to characters. That's fine. Save toot, save. I will go ahead and back out now. And I will go ahead and reload because that is thoroughly annoying. It happens from time to time. You know what? We'll just have to open the application and load from within the application because I don't think it will open for me trying to open the file. Little things. It's not a perfect system, but by God, it is so much easier than doing this by hand. Trust me, I have done multiple characters by hand, and it is such a pain in the ass. Uh, so much more labor intensive to go through and make sure you've done all the proper calculations. Having this automatically calculate the scores and benefits and things, especially your strength modifier and your weight equipment, those kinds of things, this is light years ahead of doing it by hand. It can be done, but if you don't have to, don't. So this is actually a good example. Now I can show you, you can open a character rather than just creating a new one. You go in, select it, open it, it'll load the character up. There we go. Back, fixed. I don't know why it did that, but we'll not worry about it now. So continue equipping the selected stuff, goes to my armor. My outfit will just go to my torso. It's good. You can see what's equipped over here. I don't have anything in my head. That came out wrong. I have plenty in my head. I'm not that stupid. Got stuff on my torso, nothing on my legs. Woohoo. And yeah, there you go. You can also see your weight here and what your load is. That's a nice thing to pay attention to so you don't constantly have to be going to your character sheet and seeing, oh, am I overburdened or anything like that. It's just right up there. It's nice information to have. So with that, I think we've done everything we need to do here. One thing I will go ahead and show you right now is some of the other tabs up here. Templates, you don't need to worry about. That is for GM stuff, adding templates to NPCs and monsters. You will almost never use the templates tab as a player. I've never used it, and I've created more characters than I care to admit at this point. We've done skills, class, feats and abilities, domains. That will matter for mostly for clerics. Again, you can select your deity here if you need to. I already have my deity selected, so it automatically loads what domains I have available, and then I would just check them. I don't have any domains available because I'm a barbarian. I don't really give a shit about my god. It's just kind of there as a nice background to my life. The other major important thing is spells. For spellcaster characters, this is where you're going to go ahead and go through your spells, and usually the system will tell you on your things to be done if you need to add additional spells. It varies from class to class depending on whether you're a spontaneous spellcaster or a prepared spellcaster. So you have spells here for known spells. Usually you want to have add auto known spells on level load. You have spell books. You usually want to have your spell book set to whatever your default is so that any new known spells will automatically get added to the spell book. And then you have your prepared spells. So again, this will vary depending on the character, and in fact, I'll probably go ahead and do an example of how to do this with the different kinds of characters in just a moment. But let's go ahead and wrap things up here. You have your description tab. This is useful for adding in, for example, a bio. You can also add in a portrait if you're a fan of character art like I am. Load portrait. You can change the thumbnail size. It's great. And again, it's causing problems with my window, so I will have to go ahead and reload. This is really getting annoying. I apologize, you guys. I don't know why it's doing this. Like I said, I normally use Mac. The PCGen for Mac is incredibly stable. I know, somewhat weird that it's more stable for Mac than for Windows, because I'm presuming it was built on Windows, but I don't know. I don't really have a reason to think that. In any case, go ahead and load everything back up. Yada, yada. The more sources you load, the longer this takes. So there is an argument to be made for not loading too many sources, but I'm an asshole, and normally I load every possible source that I can because, like I said, I like pushing the limits of the system. Reopen Toot. And there we go. So yeah, like I said, description, you can add in all the different things that you want to add in. There are GM notes, things like that. Usually you don't need to worry about that. The final tab that I'll note is companions. Companions are weird in PCGen. have not yet found a really good way of doing them in PCGen. Um, in theory, you're able to do it, but usually the calculations don't come out. So if you're choosing a class with a companion, try and do it in PCGen and just take a real close look at the calculations as you level up each time and make sure that's correct. Otherwise, you're probably going to have to do it by hand, in which case there are multiple people at HSG. If you're doing the HSG campaign, that will be more than happy to help you out, me among them. So, gone through all of our tabs. Temporary bonuses. I never use this because I never use PCGen while I'm playing, and the only time you would have temporary bonuses is while you're playing, almost. So again, another tab that's pretty much meaningless for you as a player, unless you're using PCGen while you're playing. Some people might do that. I've never done it. I don't know how it would work for that. Once you've got everything selected, once you've gone through all the tabs and all the various options, and really there are a shit ton, that is both the strength and the weakness of the Pathfinder system. There's a lot to look at, a lot to select, and you can spend literally hours just creating a single character, trust me, I know. But once you've gotten everything cleared out, you'll want to go over to your character sheet. And this will give you a preview of everything that is loaded into your character. So you'll want to go ahead and just take a look. You've got your character name, player name, alignment. Make sure all the information looks correct. If anything looks weird, go and check it out. See if it's calculating things properly. Skills are one thing that may not always properly calculate. Also, check your traits. The trait bonuses don't always get added in. So for example, if I'm using Bastard here, I want to go ahead and check, am I actually getting a miscellaneous modifier to my sense motive? I'm getting a +3 from it being a class, and I'm getting a +1 from the trait. So yeah, that one's properly calculated. But PCGen is not infallible is what I'm saying, so, go ahead and take the time to make sure things look correct. And usually your GM will help with that as well when they go and review your sheet, but responsibility is on you to try and make it as correct as possible before you pass it along to your GM. Your GM's going to have to look through a ton of character sheets, and it just helps them if you've already done as much of the legwork as possible. Once you've got everything settled and everything looks correct, you've got all your options selected and your character sheet is looking good, you're going to want to come over here to your export button. That is the button just right there, second from the right. And you can select a variety of formats. I usually like to do, well, first you want to choose what you're going to export to. I never use standard. I always use PDF because I'm usually uploading this to other people. So usually you'll want some form of the character fantasy standard. There's a bunch of different colors. I like to usually choose a color based on my character type, so we'll go with a nice red one here for our Raging Barbarian. You'll export it, you can save it, it'll default to the characters folder, that's fine for me right now. And then you can have it open the PDF to make sure everything loaded properly. I usually do that. And there we have it. There's our character sheet. Nice and pretty and red. Fantastic. Got all of our strength and con and dex and all that's calculating properly. Got my feat. I've got my special qualities. Big game hunter. I go after big creatures. Nice. And I have some innate racial spells. That's the other nice thing is with the racial stuff, the PCGen will automatically add some of that stuff in. Again, if you're going with a weird race, you'll want to double check some of that to make sure it gets properly added. Not all the race options properly add things, but most of the usual races are properly loaded into, PCGen. So that's the basics for character creation. I know that was a really quick run through. I probably went through some of it too fast, but that'll cover the basics. A couple other things that I'll show you now. Once you've created the character and you get to play it and you get experience, you're obviously going to want to level up. Leveling up is basically the same process. You make sure you have the correct class selected. This is going to be important if you're multi-classing. You'll want to make sure that you change it to whatever class you're multi-classing into. But once you have the correct class selected again, you just add a level. And like I said, it'll bring up your HP, and now it automatically randomly rolls it, but since I'm creating this character ostensibly for the HSG campaign, our house rule is first 3 levels, get max health. Woohoo! And I am a healthy little barbarian. Um, then you have your things to be done again. You've got skill points to be spent. You've got class bonuses. And now I have a class feature, a rage power to select. So it brings me over to my class features. Anything that you're looking for that is specific to your class is almost certainly going to be in the class features under feats and abilities. It's a little bit counterintuitive because you would think, oh, I need to go to the class tab. Class tab is purely just for selecting your class. It's not the most intuitive design, but once you get used to it, it's second nature. And like I said, if you're navigating with the things to be done window, you really don't have to worry about where to find these things. It'll show you. So that makes things really simple and convenient. But that's all you need to do. Once you've filled all that stuff out again, you'll come back over here. You'll see that the character sheet calculates for a second, and it'll automatically, it's already added in my extra hit points. Has it? That seems low. Seems really low. Why is that coming out so low? Let's go ahead and add our hit point. Now it's and now it properly calculated. It probably was because I hadn't done enough to really get it to update everything. Like I said, that's why you need to go ahead and check and make sure your stats get properly calculated, because sometimes it won't, and it may not export correctly then. So just review things, double check. Don't trust the system too much. It's a tool, not a magic box. Real quickly, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through some of the other classes that have options like spells. Let's just do that real quick. Let's go ahead and real quick we'll create a gnome sorcerer. Just go ahead and dump it all into charisma, or as much as we can. Get a little extra constitution. And now it's telling me I can't go that high, so we'll add in a point or two here to strength to get rid of that detriment, and just throw one into intelligence. I don't care. Go down, select our class. I'm just really quickly going through and getting to the point where I can do spells so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. There we go. Got Sorcerer Bloodline, but now I have spells remain to be selected. It's telling me that because sorcerers are spontaneous casters, and they have known spells. They just have a specific number of known spells. Once you go into this window here and select Sorcerer and select the level of spells, you'll have this little class info box, and that'll usually tell you how many spells you need to select. So it's telling me I need 4 0-level spells right there in known. It tells me how many I can cast per day. 0, it says I can't cast any, but that's just because they don't actually get counted. Don't worry about that. You can cast as many 0-level spells as you want. So just throw a couple in here, and as soon as I try and do more than 4, it's going to tell me I can only learn 4 spell levels. There's no more higher level spots that I can use. Get that taken care of. And again, a couple here. And now we'll go over to the character sheet, and you'll see down here, lo and behold, here are all of my spells that I know. It's great. I have all my spells. They tell me the DC, the components, whether it has spell resistance, and this will all get exported to the character sheet as well. For other classes that aren't spontaneous, the process is slightly different. Let's go ahead and do a wizard. We'll do a half-orc wizard. It's an odd race class combination I've never thought about, but sure, whatever. Oh, actually, that brings me to a good point. With certain races, the race doesn't have a standard ability bonus. You have to select it. So make sure, again, check your things to be done. If you're not seeing a racial bonus to your ability scores, it might be over here. You have to go down to feats and abilities. You've got racial abilities. You add in your, let's say I wanted to do intellect for my wizard. This is also where if you have racial subtypes, you can select those. Those will adjust what your racial traits are. Or if you just want to select specific different racial traits, those are here as well. Generally, selecting different racial traits requires checking with the GM. Generally, things are acceptable, especially for the HSG campaign, because Truth has indicated that most options are acceptable. But again, standard practice is check with your GM before you go and choose a non-standard option. Any case, that was a good thing to cover. I kind of forgot that. Like I said, probably some things that I missed here. And the things to be done is telling me that I need to select a racial subtype. Okay, go back there. I don't want a racial subtype. I just want the standard half-orc. Any case, got my wizard selected, but I haven't added the level yet. Go ahead and add the level. Have to choose a school. This is, again, sometimes there are class options that come up depending on the class. When you add your class, sometimes you have to select things. So we'll go ahead and do a fire based wizard. It doesn't really matter right now. Got 6 points of HP, so I'm super squishy. And now you'll note I don't have any note in here about needing to choose spells. I have an arcane bond that needs to be selected, so let's go ahead and do that. Bonded object, whatever. Go back to the summary tab. Still no spells to be selected. Huh, what's up with that? This is where it's weird when it comes to prepared spells. For character creation, you don't need to prepare the spells. You can just have a character that doesn't have the spells prepared, and so it won't automatically tell you, hey, you need to add spells. It doesn't even tell me, hey, you need to add spells to your spell book, because it assumes the spell book is something separate from the character. So what you want to first do when you're creating a prepared spell class is come over to your spell book and make sure that you have this selected. It'll save you so much time, because otherwise you have to manually add your spells both to your known spells and then to the spell book. But if you select this, as soon as you add a spell to a spell that you know, it'll get added to your spell book. So there it is, Dancing Lights. And so I get 3 spells at 0 level, and 3 spells of 1st level. Again, check the rules on preparing wizard spells, because it's affected by your school and things like that. But then once you've got them all added into your spell book, you've got all that there, you have to come over here to your prepared spells and say how many casts you want of a specific spell. I can't cast more than, I can only prepare 2 level spells for level 0. So if I prepare both as Dancing Lights, which 0 level spells aren't a good example, go ahead and just do, I can prepare only 2 spells of level 1. So if I want both of those spells to be prepared person, or charm person, excuse me, I have to do charm person times 2. And then you come over to the character sheet, bring it on down. You've got your spells known, and now you have your spell book. That tells you what spells are available to you. And then you have your prepared spells, and that'll have little boxes to tell you the number of spells you have prepared of that type. Very important thing to have. You don't always have to generate your character sheet with the prepared spells. This is just if you want them to be on your character sheet. If you know you're always going to have a certain spell prepared, just because for whatever reason, and you don't want to have to constantly tell your GM, hey, I have this list of spells prepared, you can have it on your character sheet. But if you're wondering why your spells aren't showing up on your character sheet as a wizard or some other prepared spellcaster, that's why. All right. Now, I think I've taken you through most of the basic options. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm always available. Let me know in the comments, or if you're a member of HSG or you want to be a member of HSG, you can join our Discord, and I'm usually available there. Links to HSG's website are in the description below. Real quick before I leave you, I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the non-standard options for using PCGen. So, we discussed earlier you can select sources. And usually the core supplements is going to be sufficient for your purposes. But if you're not finding something in PCGen and you've seen it on D20 PFSRD and you want to use it, you're really excited, I don't know, about a nanite bloodline. That was something for me that was for a long time not in PCGen. you can come over here to advanced sources, and this will give you every single source that is available to load into PCGen. And so you can go ahead and just remove whatever is already selected and custom select your sources. If you're like me, you'll go through and select literally everything. And this is where you'll need to go and check, okay, why is this one red? It says down here, the requirements. I need to have core rules. I need to have the advanced player's guide. I need to have ultimate magic, ultimate combat, and ultimate equipment. So I can come down here and go, oh, there's the core rulebook. Need that. I need the advanced player's guide. And I needed ultimate combat, ultimate equipment, and ultimate magic. And now when I come back up here, my advanced class guide is available, and that'll give me access to a bunch of classes that are not in the standard core rulebook. So if you're going through this and you see a specific source that you want to have added in, and that's one of the things D20 PFSRD is really valuable for. Whenever you're looking at something down at the bottom, it'll tell you what the source of those rules or that content is. And so you can come over here and see, oh, is it available in PCGen at all, or am I just wasting my time? There are certain publishers that aren't available in PCGen. For example, Cobalt Press has some options that are on D20 PFSRD. They're not available on PCGen. It's probably due to copyright laws, or maybe PCGen just hasn't gotten around to adding those third-party source materials. But bottom line is, if you want to do something like that, you're not going to be able to do it through PCGen. Otherwise, if you're just wanting to have as much as possible in PCGen, you'll want to go through and add everything you can in the Paizo section by going through and seeing, okay, what are the requirements for this? Okay, I've got those selected, add it in, add it in, add it in. And then go through the other publishers, Remarkable Races, you can add in Codex. It'll take you a bit of time, but then what you can do is save your source selection. So we'll just save this one as PF test, and then when I come over to basic, that's in my basic source selections, and I don't have to go through and select them all over again. So usually each time I install a new version of PCGen, I come over here and create my custom source selection. And that will be the most comprehensive way to have everything possible in PCGen available to you. But like I said, for most people who aren't insane like me, that's not really going to be important. That's just, you know, an option that's available. So cancel out of that. There's the PCGen website. You've got the download there. Like I said, links are in the description below. Beyond that, I think I've covered most of the stuff. If y'all like the video, like it. If you have any comments, constructive criticism is always appreciated. Questions, anything like that, feel free to put it in the comments below. If you're interested in joining HSG, hit us up on our Discord. It's a great gaming group. We're always looking for additional people to join our tabletop groups or GM them. If you're a GM, please come and join us. We are always happy to have additional GMs. And we have a whole bunch of other games that we support. Destiny 2 is really big right now, obviously. A bunch of other stuff that we just get together and have a good time gaming. So, in any case, thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate you listening to me ramble on about PCGen. If this video is appreciated and y'all are interested in me covering other topics, whether it's Pathfinder specific, other tabletop games, other issues in PCGen, or even Roll20. We use Roll20 for our online tabletop sessions, so I've considered doing guides in that. If that would be something y'all would be interested in, let me know, and maybe I'll go ahead and do it. But in any case, you all have a great evening, and thank you for joining.